really, really say welcome here, and I look forward to a very, very fruitful discussion. Asanteni sana. Thank you very much.
Very well. That is a Development Partners Forum currently underway at the DP's residence. We have a number of speakers lined up to be speaking in that, including the CAS, Professor Njue II. We also have Dr. Chris Kipto, who is the National Treasury, and Julius Coril, the PS Water and Sanitation, among a host of other leaders. And we'll be getting more details in regards to that a little bit later. Very well. Welcome to News Check and On Set. And before I introduce my guest on set, a number of events have been happening and are currently happening. To start with the head of state, President William Ruto, is in South Korea, and in South Korea he is engaged in the Korea-Africa Summit, and we will be getting that report in our subsequent bulletin in regards to what they are engaging in and what are some of the avenues that Africa can be able to partner with South Korea for development. Another thing that's currently underway is the finance bill. The finance bill. We are in the public participation stages where it's your chance as a Kenyan to ensure that you voice your concerns in regards to the finance bill of 2024. And my colleague Abdi is currently on that note. And also some of the things that have been able to happen in the last couple of days is that you do remember on Saturday, the country did commemorate 61 years of independence in the Madaraka Day that was held in the great county of Bungoma. And the clarion call from the head of state who graced the occasion is that we need to be more united. And something that he said that really touched the souls and core of politics is that he says the days of ethnic politics is long gone. Something else that we been keeping tabs with is the Mogoka debate. We'll also be touching with my panel of experts. 3 counties had already banned it before the court halted that. And a number of things have been happening. There's a back and forth push in regards to this stimulant. We'll be touching on that. And also there are, be honest as Kenyans, there are cracks in the ruling coalition in regards to the UDA leadership, and also in regards to the politics surrounding the elections. And we'll be getting a keen look in regards to that and how the grassroots are continuing, and especially in the great county of Mombasa, among other issues. That said, allow me now to introduce my panel of experts, beginning with my immediate left. We have Mheshimiwa CNN, that is Charles Nguna, who is the MP for Mwingi West. Mheshimiwa, karibu sana.
Asante sana.
Karibu sana, umepotea sana.
Niko tu.
Yes.
Hamjambo Kenyans.
Yes, keeping the government in check still?
Of course.
All right, we'll be talking about that.
Yeah.
Just next to him, we have a leadership and governance expert. We have Kimani Mwangi. Kimani.
Yes, sir.
Welcome, bro.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah.
Looking forward to have discussion that will aid in elaborating issues to fellow Kenyans.
Very good.
Yes.
And just next to him, we have Dr. Churchill Saoke. Dr. Churchill Saoke is not a new face here. We have had a number of analysis with him. He is a leadership and governance expert. He is also a scientist, and he's also a lecturer at the Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology. Doc, karibu sana.
Thank you so much, Dan.
Gentlemen, karibuni.
Asante.
To begin with you, Mheshimiwa,
Yes.
The opposition is having issues with, I even saw a news item, it was not a Kenyan one, but they were talking about the trips that the head of state is making, and this is no exception. What do you make of the president? Because if you ask a number of Kenyans, we say that the head of state is strengthening our foreign policy.
It's good to remain objective and also patriotic. But there comes a time when we have to ask ourselves, what are we getting as Kenyans from these trips? Like recently, we witnessed a visitation of United States of America by the head of the state with a huge delegation of members of parliament, judiciary, executive, even comedians. We saw it happening in White House, and we have to ask ourselves, what are we reaping from this? Based on what was informed to Kenyans, I think we just went to US to collect debts.
But
Because
Mheshimiwa,
everything...
we were told about, we have trillions in terms of deals.
Trillions of deals, but based on who is going to finance them. It is debts we are going to borrow from United States of America. When I look at the list of the things that were actually tabled, I cannot see anything that was a conditional grant. Everything was just debt. Even the road we are talking about, dueling of Mombasa Road all the way to Mombasa Expressway, it is going to be funded by Kenyans through toll stations and other things. We have to ask ourselves, what United States of America gave us as a grant, just free. And based on that, I think we lost on this. Because if we calculate the cost-benefit analysis, we went at a loss as a country. And it is time for the president who said we need to cut off the traveling appetite, which we have done in Parliament, actually. No, members of Parliament are not traveling.
Yesterday, the report from the Auditor General talked about 12 billion in the last 9 months, and especially local travel, and that is from Mheshimiwa.
If you look at what Parliament spent, it is less than 2 billion in terms of traveling. The rest went to executive, which is mind-blowing, honestly. We need to be sincere and tell Kenyans we are not going to cut the cost of traveling. Let us continue as usual instead of pleasing Kenyans and telling Kenyans we are no longer traveling while we are doing vice versa. Yes, so I am not really happy with the way we are traveling. The issue of South Korea, let us wait again. I can't judge South Korea trip until I see what the country is going to gain, or rather going to get. But I hope it's not loans. We have to, if we are going to get grants, actually free things, free projects, start projects to be funded, I'll be very happy to support the president with those trips.
Very well, that is Mheshimiwa CNN. But Kimani, looking at the president's foreign policy, the one he has adopted, let's be very honest, he is one of the most traveled presidents in the country. And from what we picked from the USA and from what we are expecting to reap from South Korea, Mheshimiwa here is a little bit reserved in regards to what we are gaining as a country. And from where you sit, the foreign policy that the head of state has adopted, there are some many deals that we had, including in film, in entertainment, in road, in infrastructure. What do you make of them?
You know, one of the major aspects that lead to growth of economies is investment through FDIs, foreign direct investments. And part of the reason why FDIs grow is when you have a strategy and a campaign to let foreign investors aware of investment opportunities that are available in your country and how well you can help them cut down on expenditure as they invest in your nation. You remember in the trip to USA, we saw Coca-Cola is going to increase investment in Kenya by over 20 billion, and Microsoft was doing so by over 230 billion. Now, when you look at the direct and indirect benefits we shall reap because of such investments, especially across the value chains, you realize it isn't something we can trivialize. We may have gotten a PPP contract signed between the ever-strong capital and Kenya to do the 440 expressway to Mombasa, which again comes with a lot of benefits. You can look at it from the point of the funding, but you can also look at it from the spark of economy that it is going to ignite through having over 470 billion being spent to build a road. We have benefits that shall be drawn across value chains. We shall have contractors do the road, we shall have supplies done to those who are building, we shall have labor, and we shall have growth that will grow along the road. There's a lot of benefits you reap from such. Remember, we also got 15 free helicopters that would aid us in fight for peace and such issues in East Africa. In as much as we committed to buy. Free? Yes, it was free. It was free. What we did commit to buy...
thinks there's a string attached.
No. What we committed to buy were 150 armored vehicles.
Yeah, armored personnel vehicles.
Which, if you do your research, will find that it will come at a cost of about 18 billion. But again, the end game was that we got goodies worth about 600 billion. If you could, in fact, it is more, because 230 plus 30 is 260. There was money that was given for empowerment of IBC and such like. We got deals worth they're about 700 billions. So in as much as the president is going out, it is good to look at what he's coming back with. Another thing the president has been very keen on is export of labor from Kenya. There are those who've been fighting it, and the reason being that we are having brain drain from our economy. But again, we can choose to be idealistic about the whole thing. We could choose to be realistic about it. It is true that we have a youth bubble in our economy, and it is true that we are churning out more graduates that we can employ. Now, when the president goes out to get jobs for them, and it is also good to note that diaspora remittance in this country is the greatest foreign exchange earner in this nation. It has gone beyond what coffee, tea, and even horticultural products are giving us. So it has overtaken all of them. So we are no longer an agricultural inclined economy. We are more of a logistical economy, selling services, selling labor, right? In exchange for what we don't have. So let the president go out, right? Let him convince as many direct investors to come and invest in Kenya. Let him even come up with concessions, tax rebates, and such things to have them come to the country to invest, because it is good for the nation. Let him go to South Korea. Let's see the memorandum of understanding he's going to sign that is going to help the nation. So if we judge his expenditure on how much he's spending, it is also fair that we also look at what we are gaining from his going out.
All right. Doc, from what I've heard is that Mheshimiwa and maybe Kimani are reading from different scripts. Mheshimiwa is a little bit conservative in terms of the trips. Are they bearing fruits? Kimani says we had about trillions in regards to the US trip. This is a very crucial one, the Africa-Korea relations.
Yes,
From where you sit, where do you... And by the way, just to clear the air, we had extended an invitation to UDA and also a number of MPs. The one that we had invited, the last minute, was caught up with something and was not able to come, because it's good always to balance from both the UDA and the opposition side. Yes, Doc.
Yes, thanks, Ben. First, it's important for us to appreciate that in building, the world is very anarchic. And every nation and every state is always there to grab opportunities that are there or that exist in the international system. And all that depends on how strategic a nation is, on how strategic a state is, and under the leadership of the heads of state, to be able to, to see the potential of the country that he leads and see how she can use that potential to galvanize the global opportunities for that particular state. And I think that, well, global diplomacy is very key. And my my understanding is that the strategicness of this global diplomacy, which by extension now gets into the whole concept of foreign trips, is very important for heads of state. But the strategicness of those trips and diplomacy is what is important. And I think that it is right for some Kenyans to be pessimistic about the trips, because, you know, they just want to get to know the details of some of these discussions that happen, so that they can be, because remember that, you know, taxpayers' monies are being used to fund these trips, and so it's just fair enough for the country and the people to get to know, you know, these are the deals, that the specific details of some of these deals, because, you know, bilateral meetings can be very elitist. They can be very, what I would call, up in the air. A lot of words and being spoken in diplomats can be very good in lies. And the details of how the sweet words of diplomats get into the realities of what the expectations of the specific people of the country want is ideally why this whole discussion is emerging. And I think it is incumbent on state, agents of the state to see, and I can tell you for sure that in bilateral meetings, huge discussions are always being made. Big deals that have been mentioned here and even in other places will always be mentioned. The key question is how to make these big deals and big talks realities.
Exactly.
And I think that for me, this is actually where we need to have candid discussions, because, you know, bringing the big talks into realities is actually what will now make even people begin to realize that, you know, these foreign trips really make sense. These foreign trips are really worth the cost. And in as much as it might be too early to, you know, it might be too early to get to know really how fruitful these trips are, my charge and my challenge to governments and to the government and the people who are engaged in some of these negotiations is, the talk is big, the deals have been signed. The reality is when we get back with the deals, with the signatures, and to see the details and how we can make those big talks realities that bring change to the lives of people. There's something that I want to bring, which I've also had a very firm belief on. As a student of diplomacy and a person who studied diplomacy at very high levels, it is important for us to appreciate that in as much as we want to go out to look for you know, jobs for our people, countries do that, but they are more strategic on how they do it. They're more strategic on how they do it. Remember that when you go into many of the multilateral organizations across this country, in many other parts of the world, you will actually be able to see that most of those multilateral organizations and even multilateral corporations, they are headed by some very key individuals from some countries. It is because those countries have been able to see the power of having their citizens in those key multilateral and multinational corporations, to an extent that their existence there actually bring back to their countries. And so, even as we look for opportunities for our young people out there, we should not be blind to the fact that these are people who belong to the state of Kenya. And their existence, it's not just about looking for the opportunities to survive. Just because they don't have jobs in Kenya, we are looking for them opportunities to survive outside there. We are a state called Kenya. We exist in an international system where we need to survive. And our search for opportunities for our young people outside there should all contribute into this whole thing of making our country to survive in the international system.
So you want
just to add on the state visit, I have got no problem with the president even traveling daily. Daily actually, not even weekly or monthly. My problem is the way he is executing that travels. If you look at the delegation that went to United States, close to 400 people participated in that. this being bilateral, multilateral talks can be held by a minimum of, let's say, just 20 people who really matter. Of course, there's CS Finance, it's a critical person. CS, of course, and governors, few of them, they are critical. But if you look at the number of people who went to the United States, it is a big question. What we need to know, it is to stop telling Kenyans we are cutting down the traveling expenses and just remain silent than telling Kenyans the opposite of what we are doing. The president himself pronounced him, telling Kenyans we have cut down the issues of traveling expenses. But if you look at the actual thing, even based on what control of the budget told us, it is the opposite. So let us stop actually giving Kenyans false information. I have got no issues with the president traveling, provided we will do exactly what we want. And at the same time, it is too early to speculate the benefits of the trip in the United States of America. Let us wait 2 to 3 years, we see whether we are going to actualize what was agreed. We have seen so many of the bilateral talks, multilateral talks happening, but when it comes to implementation, there's nothing you can really show. It is just an exercise of lip service.
We hope that is going to happen. We're going to see the fruits of that visit, because it was a first by an African head of state in almost 20 years.
Yes.
Away from that, Mheshimiwa, we also have the finance bill, which of course it has elicited mixed reactions among Kenyans and also leaders like you. And especially from where you sit as opposition. Right now, we are in the public participation stage. And I remember speaking the last time here and said that we as a country, we need a public participation act, the law that will give us a guideline into how we do the public participation. Reason being, I remember last year during the public participation, a number of Kenyans argued that in as much as we factor in our responses or what we would want factored in that bill, that does not happen. That mandate only sits with MPs, and we saw how the MPs voted last time. How can we avoid this? Because the finance bill is for Kenyans, not for leaders.
Based on the current year we have witnessed with the current finance bill, based on the inflation at the moment, based on the low disposable income we are experiencing at the moment with Kenyans, we have to ask ourselves, do we need a new finance bill? I wish we could have just implemented the same finance bill we had this current year, because the more we are taxing Kenyans, and I tell you the truth of the matter on the ground, if you look at the pay slips of the civil servants right now, teachers, policemen, anybody who is working with the government, we are at risk of subjecting everybody to negative territory in terms of the space slips. Majority of the people now are earning less than 3,000 net, less than actually 3,000 Kenya shillings. Now you impose other issues like the motor circulation tax. Do we really need that? We can seal the loopholes, the tax, the revenue collection loopholes. I know there are so many. If you look at the number of landlords we have in this country, almost 60% of the landlords are not paying what we call residential income tax, which can be sealed instead of adding the motor vehicle circulation tax. If you look at things like the way we are managing our revenue, we have always come up with the issue of inflating all the government projects. If we can look at on that issue, we can still save a lot of taxes from Kenyans. So me at the moment, based on the low income, disposable income the Kenyans are experiencing, based on the inflation rate, unstable currency actually at the moment. You don't know, today you can wake up, the shilling is hitting 170, other days 130. We need to manage this erratic macro economic variables in our country. We need to stick with the current finance bill, implement it fully without necessarily introducing another new finance bill of 2024. So this is what we need. And I think when it comes to the floor of the House, which is this week.
Actually, that's why I wanted to ask.
This week, we are going to sit down as members of Parliament and reason. We have to be objective.
But Mheshimiwa, with all fairness, last year Kenyans, they had their input, but unfortunately when it came to the voting, we saw something that
the public participation has become just a normal exercise, but nobody takes consideration of what the stakeholders actually put on table.
So as the opposition, have you taken a stand already?
We have taken a stand. If you look at me, the last finance bill, I totally rejected it. But unfortunately, in parliamentary system, you go with the majority. I was against this finance bill 2023. This year, I'm also going to be against it because I don't see the reason why we should introduce the motor circulation tax when we have so many issues. In fact, if we are not careful, we are going to have what we call deficit because of overtaxation. Let us reason as members of Parliament. We see what we can implement. Even if it is not 2.5%, we can lower that thing to around 1.5 or 1%, which will still increase the revenue collection of our government. So let us reason together. Let us say, this is Kenya for us. This is not Kenya for opposition or Kenya Kwanza. This is Kenya for all of us. We suffer, we pay taxes, all of us. So let us reason what is actually, what can be implemented without necessarily hurting the economy and hurting Kenyans.
Kimani, from where I sit still on the finance bill, I remember last week during the public participation, the Kenya Association of Manufacturers said that this bill, if implemented the way it is going to push a lot of industries out of the country, and of course that will bring a number of issues in the country. From where you sit, the public participation phase is currently underway, and the last finance bill we had, which became the Finance Act, a number of Kenyans had raised issues in regards to, we did the public participation, but we don't feel our input was factored in the Finance Act of 2023.
Firstly, the public participation is enshrined in the Constitution, especially on all PFMs. And public participation should not be a ritual. You know, where you gather people to ask them, it's like a choir.
And then you do something
They
different.
sing to you, you get entertained, and then you go do whatever you wished. The anticipation of public participation is that people should come out, give their voice into any bill that requires money to be collected from them because it is constitutional. Then their views should be inculcated in that bill as it goes to be fine-tuned for it to be tabled in Parliament. The views of Kenyans should matter. That's how the process should be. We've seen Kenyans from various sectors coming forward to argue, and I thank the professionals. They've not shied away from expressing the views, their professional opinions on this bill, which is very good. It is also good to note that what we have is just proposals from the Finance Committee. Then once all these opinions are put together, we shall have a bill that is redone after consideration of all these views. Then again, the parliamentarians will have the opportunity to pass the bill through the 3 readings before it is assented to become the law. What I may also wish to add is that the members of Parliament have information that many of us do not have with regard to how the government is faring, right? They can tell you, for instance, that in this budget cycle that we are getting into, how much we target to collect from revenue, our local revenue. I think it is 2.4, if I'm not mistaken.
2.7 trillion.
2.7 trillion. And then they will tell you that the government will be paying out around 1.35 in terms of debts. The government's wage bill combined with consolidated expenditures and others which forms what we call the recurrent expenditure of the government, is almost 2 trillion. So what that means is that the government intends to spend, before even we do the 400 billion allocation to the county governments. So when you put together what the government intends to spend vis-a-vis what it intends to collect, you realize we already have a deficit of almost 1 trillion before even we talk about the finance bill. Now, money can only be gotten from where the government think money exists. That is the saddest thing about taxation. Because again, you can't, taxation should purely be based on income, because you can only tax income. Yeah? That is how taxation should work. Things like motor vehicle circulation tax, it goes beyond that because it is taxing assets, right? But again, you ask yourself a question: what options are available to the government to keep us afloat? So it is an act of trying to strike a balance whereby the government ought to look at the current state of affairs of the government in terms of the much money that it needs, vis-a-vis where to get that money, and how best to get the money without, again, impoverishing its own people and crippling its own economy. Who should help the government are the MPs, firstly, because they are the ones who will pass the bills. I keep saying, if you are opposed to a measure that the government is taking, other than opposing it, you also have that duty of giving alternatives. It seems like it is something the government likes to impose on the opposition. Don't just oppose, give us alternatives. But again, it is something that makes sense. If the opposition feels the government should not tax people or in terms of using their motor vehicle, then the opposition ought to sit down, look at the bill, come up with its own tax proposals that would counter what the government is doing. Like you've heard the honorable member saying that we need to seal the loopholes, which I agree with him completely. We need to ask ourselves a question: what percentage of Kenyans are paying taxes versus what percentage of Kenya should be paying taxes? Now, when we keep saying that we cannot concentrate all our tax collection on the 3 million people that are in the formal sector and a few others that we are able to get based on what they own. We need to expand our tax base.
Okay, kindly just apologies. Let me hold that thought. Let's first of all cross over to the Garden Inn, where the public participation exercise is currently underway, and get a few reactions in regards to that as we continue with this live discussion.
To reach a critical mass. We believe that the incentives should be targeted initially at the consumer to ramp up the demand for electric vehicles, and subsequently to assemblers and manufacturers. And why we are requesting for this is fourfold. First, there will be price neutrality between what we purchase as a second-hand internal combustion engine ICE vehicle and an EV.
We do apologize for that technical hitch in regards to that video where the public participation exercise is currently underway at the Garden Inn, and that is exactly what we are talking about. And Kimani Mwangi, there's something you are wrapping up about.
So what I was saying is, there is that responsibility of the government to ensure they've brought everybody on board to contribute in the task basket. But again, there is also the question of how long can it take the government to do so? Because sometimes we say you can whistle as you walk. You may not be able to eat as you speak, but you can whistle as you walk. So some things will be done alongside the finance bill. We must appreciate the efforts KRA is putting to bring on board landlords, like Muhesh was saying. We've seen it has employed people who are going around all of our estates. I'm an estate agent, by the way. Part of what I do, other than being a governance expert, is that I run a real estate company. And I can tell you that KRA...
Mheshimiwa, these are the people you're targeting.
Yes, I can tell you that KRA is really...
You do pay taxes, right?
Yes, I do pay taxes. I can tell you that KRA is really on the cases of landlords. The questions we are being called every now and then to say the landlords that we work for, it's quite a number. So there is a lot of effort geared towards... You've seen even Mamamboga and everybody else complain that eventually KRA has caught up with them. So it is good to appreciate that KRA has gone out of its way to try and expand the basket as much as possible. So what I try to say here is Kenyans must understand that our current financial position as a nation is not okay. We are collecting lesser than we need for us to keep afloat.
Yes.
We have not even talked of development expenditure here. But we've already exceeded our collections. So when you are in such a state, as a government, you must ask yourself a question. And that is why I would say, even if the government is going to borrow, we badly need that money, even if it is borrowed.
We have to.
What Muhesh should help us do in Parliament is to make sure that they pin down everybody who is responsible of spending our money to be held accountable, because part of the role the Parliament should play is oversight.
Okay.
And oversight should be across board. So the Parliament should start by getting us the thieves who are stealing our money. The Auditor General report is always available to them. They can put to task the EACC.
You know, Kimani, sorry for interruption. You are talking like a professional. Recently, I'll give you an example. A person who sold fake fertilizer escaped by just congregating 7 members of parliament going against 150 members of parliament. And that person survived. So you are professional in this manner, but you are not talking in terms of reality.
But I can
as well ask
Mheshimiwa, if those are his sentiments, what actions did he take as a member elected to represent his people as well as our nation? Now,
I'll tell you the action I've taken.
I don't think...
Based on that,
let me answer.
Based on that, we are coming up with an amendment of that study in order in Parliament. Now, if there's issue of impeachment, it will be done on the floor of the House by everybody.
Not committees.
No more committees. These 12 guys who are going to congregate somewhere in a room and save a person. So this time round we are made.
When can we expect that to be done?
Very soon, by the end of this session, we will have that clauses removed, completely removed. So if you get impeached by the House, that is the end of you. You go home.
All right. Okay. Let's hear what Doc has to say.
Ben,
in regards of extending the tax bracket.
The reality is that the Kenyans are crying. Kenyans are feeling the pinch of the expansion of the tax base, whether it's for good reasons or for bad reasons. It is the people of Kenya are feeling it, and I think that it is important for leaders, in as much as there is the reality of what is required in terms of expanding tax base and things like that. We need to appreciate that you're dealing with human beings, and even Kenya it's not only Kenya that is in a bad situation financially. Every country, many countries are facing this, and I think that it's incumbent on national leadership to see how best to cushion the population and raise revenue in a manner that does not create stress to the nation and also even impact negatively to the growth of the economy. Remember that, you know, in as much as, and I have said this several times in this forum, that we may expand our revenue collection and create fiscal policies to expand revenue collection, which might have negative effect in terms of people either finding ways to circumvent tax, or two, people, you know, just wanting not to take the risks of investments, and that by extension will have an impact in the amount of revenues that the government will be able to collect. So, I think that, you know, sometimes when we get into increasing debt, the debt should also be used to help cushion the people from being overtaxed. Yeah.
And Mheshimiwa, because of the interest of time, allow me to shift focus to matters national unity. I remember the head of state was his clarion call on Madaraka Day that we need to be united. But in the last couple of weeks, we've been treated to some politics in regards to supporters of the head of state and supporters of his deputy. But the clarion call has been national unity. I'm 100% sure, despite the fact that you sit in the opposition, you agree with these sentiments. How do we foster that? Because at the end of the day, that is something that the president has kept on hammering.
I'm very happy with what is happening currently. The way politically we are executing our matters, the way politically it is panning out. And when I see this unity between the members of parliament, the deputy president, even the president, I'm very happy. It means we are heading somewhere. Because always expect in politics those kind of events happening. But I want to correct our deputy president. When he says his interest is fighting only Mount Kenya, let me remind him he was elected by Kenyans. And he is supposed to take care of the interests of the Republic of Kenya, not Mount Kenya region alone. So that one, he was wrong. Secondly, any person, a Kenyan, has got fundamental freedom actually enshrined in our constitution. The freedom of movement. You cannot tell members of parliament, don't loiter all over. Personally, I have hosted a couple of members of parliament coming to my constituencies, the likes of Didi Nyoro, the likes of so many people coming just to do development in my constituents. So let us walk. Today I'm supposed to be free, actually traveling to Rift Valley, Eastern Coast, Central. So I think Deputy President need to read the mood of the members of parliament and accept to work with us without necessarily dictating where we are going to visit. And Oscar Sudi this time was right. Yes.
All right. And Doc, the reason I'm asking you this question is because somebody pointed out something that in as much as we are looking for national unity, we really need to be practical in what we are doing and what we are saying. Reason being, the universities that are scattered around the country, if you look at the vice chancellors of many institutions, he noted that many are from almost the same region or the same community as that, and that cannot really foster national unity. From where you see, how do we foster national unity? It's a good thing that Mheshimiwa here is agreeing with members of the ruling coalition in some aspects in terms of unity. And that is what the head of state was preaching on Saturday.
Well, I think away from the universities, I will not be able to delve, I might not want to delve much into the universities because there are a couple of other things that come into play whenever you have selections of vice chancellors, that it's usually very murky. It's very political. But I think on the broader scope of achieving the aspiration of national unity is important and the advisors of the deputy president need to see, you know, the need to build himself to help brand him as a national leader. Because you see, well, he could be politically right to wanting to galvanize the Mount Kenya so that he has a solid political constituency of the Mount Kenya around him, with which he can use to mobilize and negotiate for whatever stake he wants in forthcoming, either maybe financial or maybe political positions in future. So politically, what he's doing, he's right. And you know, the bad news, and this is real politic. The real politic is that all politics begin local, and he has realized that he does not have very strong anchoring on the ground, and you know that makes his position very loose, and you know anybody can be swayed anywhere he wants. So in as much as in terms of achieving the national aspiration of national unity, it does not make sense politically. In terms of real politic, it makes sense. I think the only problem is that he's doing it at the wrong time. He's doing it at a time that people expect him to be a national leader. But every other person who's reached national leadership has tried to do what he does. I think it's the timing that is wrong, that is portraying him negatively. Perhaps he needs to do it in a manner that makes people see him nationalistically. Right now he appears to be, and many people now see him as someone who is only defending the interest of one region, which then brands him very negatively, especially into the future. But I think that he can still be able to lay out strategies that help him to galvanize his backyard, but at the same time build his clout. And these things are possible. I mean, look at the deputy president designate before he got into office, and the deputy president he is now. You know, the grooming and you know the way in which he handles himself has totally changed. So it is very much possible to lay strategies that can help him to build his national clout, and at the same time solidify his regional political backing.
Kimani, an interesting view by Doc there, because what he's saying is quite interesting, that he can employ other strategies to galvanize his place, but still appearing as a national leader. Reason being, we've heard of Luya unity, Mount Kenya unity, Coast, we've ever always, but mostly when we have elections. How can we do away with this?
No, it is important to note that the clarion call for unity among leaders from a region isn't only happening in Mount Kenya. We've seen the Luya leaders meeting. We've seen, I think this week we had a meeting from all leaders from Coast, especially to discuss on the issue of Mogoka ban and such like issues. And we have now seen the leaders from Northeastern again asking their governors why are they not joining in the fight against Mogoka. We've seen leaders from Embu. So it is something happening at all times. Because we say that politics is authoritative share of virtue, values, and resources. And now we also know that resources are always scarce. So what that means is that whenever there is a struggle for resources, there will those who will get, there are those who will wait for next time. You don't want to be in the waiting list when the resources are being shared. You always want to be among those who get their shares first, because naturally people will always try to pull or towards themselves once they've eaten. That's when they realize, and Dan has not eaten. But I wouldn't naturally remember you haven't eaten when the food is not enough before I've eaten. So Daktari is very right that Gachagua must understand that other than being a politician from Mount Kenya, that he has a bigger call, that of being the Deputy President of the Republic, a member of the presidency, and the principal assistant to the president. So he cannot afford to cast the image of a tribal leader in a nation with 45 tribes. Because if you fight for the tribes of Mount Kenya as a Deputy President, when are you going to fight for the other tribes of other regions? Okay. And you being a member of the presidency, that squarely falls on your doorstep.
Okay.
So I think what the Deputy President needs to do is he needs to have a team that can push for the aspirations of his region without himself being the one doing it. Then he can concentrate on healing the nation and uniting all the 45 tribes. He can concentrate on seeing how development should happen across board, but not from his region only, while at the same time having a team that has his blessings to fight for the affairs of the region where he comes from.
All right. Thank you so much. We're taking a short commercial break, but we'll be right back. We also have a look, as I had mentioned earlier, we'll be having a link from Mombasa, where we'll be engaging Mutungo Wambua, who is the county secretary for UDA in regards to the UDA grassroots elections. We'll be back in a short while.
Kikohozi cha muda wowote, kutokwa na jasho kwa wingi usiku, uchungu kwenye kifua, afya kudhoofika, tafuta matibabu.
Joel was human. My dad is ruthless.
So how far can he go?
I'm not betraying my family.
My dad had property worth tens of millions. Come and see hundreds of millions, and Kaikara knew about it.
Tibiwa ishi poa.
Je, una malimbikizi ya ushuru? Mamlaka ya utozaji ushuru nchini KRA inakupa msamaha wa adhabu na riba ya ushuru kufikia tarehe 31 Disemba 2022 kupitia Tax Amnesty Program. Ili kujua jinsi ya kupata msamaha, jiunge nasi kwenye maonyesho ya barabarani kote nchini ukiletewa na KRA kwa ushirikiano na KBC. Pia tutakuelekeza jinsi ya kujaza fomu za ushuru na kujisajili kwa eTims, mfumo mpya unaokusaidia kutoa risiti za kidijitali kwa njia rahisi. Ijumaa tarehe 7 Juni tutakuwa katika kaunti ya Mombasa, maeneo ya Sauti House, Moi Avenue, Cannon Tower, CMC, Ganjoni, Likoni na viunga vyao. Jumamosi tarehe 8 Juni tutazuru kaunti ya Kilifi, maeneo ya Mtwapa, Kilifi Market, Gede, Matsangoni, Malindi Town, Malindi Stadium na viunga vyao. KRA, tulipe ushuru, tujitegemee.
I did not ask you, Atito, to introduce me to people. I know how these things work, okay? Huh? Feel free to pretend that you don't know me while we are there. And let me do what makes me happy, so should you.
Atito, you know it is outrageously funny how you are getting mad of an activity that we do not even sponsor, even with one coin. What is wrong with you today?
Correction, not lasting, but appreciating the view I present. Can you blame them?
So what do we call this kind of madness? To make it worse, those old pieces of clothes. What were you two thinking? Hey.
Very well, you're still watching KBC News Check. Thank you indeed so much for keeping me company. And of course, as I had mentioned earlier, is that we are crossing over to Mombasa. My colleague Ann Mburu is currently on standby with the county UDA County Secretary General in regards to the grassroots elections that are currently underway. Good morning, Ann.
Good morning to you, to Ben Troy back at Broadcasting House, and I'm coming live to you from Mombasa County. Right now, I am at the Uda Center in Nyali constituency, where right now the delegates meeting headed by the faction of Hassan Omar is ongoing. So right now I'll be talking to the Secretary General who has been proposed ahead of the 22nd June grassroots elections, the UDA grassroots elections. So Bwana Wambua will be here as the Secretary General, who's just going to give us a brief of what is really happening here today.
Thank you, asante sana. Kwa majina ni Mutungo Wambua, UDA Secretary General Mombasa County. We are here today. This is our delegates meeting here in Mombasa County, representing the Nyali constituency, and we are going to go to other counties, that is Kisauni, Mvita, Likoni, Jomvu and Changamwe, to meet these people. These are the people, the bottom-up agenda, starting from down, coming up. So this is a grassroots preparation for the 22nd of this month, that there will be election for electing our polling center representatives. Yes.
We have seen that in Mombasa we already have 4 factions of the UDA group. We have Hassan Omar's faction, we have Senator Miraj's faction, we have Ali Mohammed, and we also have Bwana Ali Mbogo. So maybe what will you be bringing new to the table now that you have been proposed as the Secretary General of UDA ahead of the 22nd June grassroots elections?
Thank you very much. We are under the umbrella of the UDA Vice Chairman, Honorable Hassan Omar. What we are bringing on the table, like the Secretary General for UDA, is get the rights of our party members, make sure the freedom they have been dreaming here in Mombasa, expressing themselves, improve the livelihood of our members here in Mombasa, so that they can be proud of this party when they're in government. We've been marked as opposition centers, carrying sufurias on the head. We don't want our mothers to do that again, and our sisters and our brothers. We want to be in the national government and harvest the fruits of national government here in Mombasa.
So why did you settle for the Secretary General position? Because we are meant to understand you wanted to be the chairperson of UDA in this region, but you settled for the Secretary General position. Why did you do that?
Thank you. You see, some of us, we also been part of the 22 election in August. We learned from the president how he was doing consensus. We were called on the table by the team of UDA, led by Hassan Omar, me and my brother Ali Hamisi Kitaka, and he saw our potential. They said, one Hala Mr. Kitaka to be the chairman and Mutungo Wambua to be Secretary General. Actually, it was our members. They agreed, and we said, because we are one team, we move forward as a united front.
So as the Secretary General of the Hassan Omar's faction, what makes you think that you're going to clinch this seat when it comes on 22nd?
What is going to make us clinch this seat? You can look from behind. This is something we've been doing for almost 30 days, and we ran up to midnight, 2 a.m., sensitizing people. The machinery we have put place only to win the election, but to popularize the party here at cost. Not only Mombasa. This machinery, you're going to see it in Magarini, Kilifi. You are going to see it in Kwale. You are going to see it in Voi, because we want the coast region to be liberated. We won't say we are in dark ages, but we want them to see the light, to see what the president has, the vision for this country. And we don't want to be left behind. We need them to be in forefront, participating and benefiting for this.
As you've heard from him, they are very confident that their team is going to emerge the winners when it comes to the grassroots elections on the 22nd. Back to you at Broadcasting House, Njue.
Thank you. That has been my colleague Ann Mburu live from Mombasa. They are engaging Mutungwa Wambua of UDA in regards to UDA primaries in that county. And because of the interest of time, allow me not to canvass that conversation further because we are wrapping up on matters politics. As I alluded to earlier, is that we have Mheshimiwa CNN, Charles Nguna from Mwingi West. We also have Kimani Mwangi and also Dr. Churchill. So, okay, gentlemen, as we wrap up, the Mugoka debate.
Yes.
If at all we have to ban, because a number of leaders, county governors have said that we need to ban Mugoka altogether. If we have to ban it, that has to come from Parliament.
Let me begin by saying no substance which is dangerous, if it doesn't kill, it is only the users. It is users who are supposed to be blamed. Muguka is not a bad thing. Same as alcohol, but it depends on how you use it.
Okay.
To me, I am going to oppose that based on the economic issues and social issues. If you look at the health issues and the economic issues and social issues, I think we should still continue using Muguka, but we need to control the youth, actually, who are the biggest culprits on this, who have been abusing the product, and we need controls. We don't need to ban it because economically and socially it's a good thing to our country. But in terms of the health-wise, we just need to control them, the amount we are taking.
All right. Final words?
Alcohol can be good.
Yes. But
if it's not used properly, it's bad.
All right.
Yes.
Your final words as we wrap up.
My final word is let me call upon all the members of parliament to interrogate this current finance bill and remove everything that is overburdening Kenyans at this time of low disposable income and high inflation. Yes.
All right, Kimani. And of course, just like 10 seconds in terms of Muguka. If you've noticed, I'm quite sitting on the fence. Reasons being, I also have a couple of stems in my farm. And I don't want to be seen like I'm leaning on any either.
I fully support Mheshimiwa, but again, I want to sympathize with those whose kids have been engrossed into this Muguka thing.
Okay.
So it is an issue of regularizing the way this Muguka is used. Nature has vacuum. If you take away Muguka, they will still find something else to keep them busy. So I think it should be something looked into keenly, and I thank the President because he told the Council of Governors to form a committee that will look into this whole issue and come up with the best way forward.
Yes.
So I think that should be the best way forward. Let people sit down, talk about it. There are those who make money out of it, and there are those who make a living out of it, even down in cost. So it's an issue of let's sit down and agree on the best way forward.
Doc, wrap it up.
Thanks, Ben. I think for me, I would like just to emphasize the fact that, in some of the regional trips or the international trips that the government has been engaging, they need to democratize some of those deals that are emerging, especially so that people of interest could also see how they can contribute into some of the, some of those deals and engage even the programs that people are doing at their individual corporate levels can be able to help feed into the foreign policy of the country. So that's my parting shot and challenge to the government.
Very well, gentlemen. Shukran sana for making time for us at this Tuesday. I've been speaking to three distinguished gentlemen who are professionals in their own right. Beginning from my immediate left, we have Mheshimiwa Charles Nguna from Mwingi West. And of course, you can mention to us your chairman or part of the committees that you engage in?
Yes, of course. The committee, I'm a chairman of many committees.
Okay, just one.
And chairman of the Kenya Young Parliamentarians Association, of course. Yes, and in terms of the national issues, we will be going forward and engaging the young people on how we are going to recruit more in parliament, actually. All the county assemblies, I believe, should be taken by young people, even National Assembly.
All right, thanks,
Mheshimiwa. All
right, just next to him, we have Kimani Mwangi, who is a leadership and governance expert. Yes. Just next to him, we have Dr. Churchill Saoke, who is a political analyst, a scientist, and also a lecturer at the Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology. Thank you so much, gentlemen, and thank you so much for watching. On this second hour, we are looking at matters environmental conservation, and you do remember that tomorrow, the 5th, the whole world is commemorating World Environment Day under the theme Land Restoration, Desertification, and Drought Resistance. Let's now cross over to CS Chilgui, who's making an address. live address.
Namely capacity building and skills development. As a ministry, we are working hard to deepen our response financial needs of the sector. We are in the process of rolling out the Kenya Jobs and Economic Transformation Project, KJET, and Njue II projects, both under the World Bank funding. We are also in the process of domesticating a high level for small business development centers, SPDCs, adopted in the USA in partnership with Strathmore University. It has been successfully piloted in counties and in due to be rolled out in all 47 counties in the coming financial year. As Yara, we invite you to partner with us that is very successful in future. Years of collaboration and institutions identify with you, including down there to train those beneficiaries and borrower and those who are uptaking government subsidized fertilizer. So to the academy or to the cohort, I think you have an opportunity. The story of Mr. Martin is a Kenyan story. It's a life story. It's a story. I listened to Madam respond to the first questions from our MC, and that is our life. That is how we've been brought up, and our journey has gone. It cuts across. Maybe the young ones may not connect with the songs you played in the past, but those were our wake up songs. Before 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, we used to sing those songs. Who will come up to sponsor again those songs? Which media houses will sponsor those songs? Because we were brought up knowing that Congo ni ukulima. The backbone of the nation is farming. One, it sorts us out on matters of food security. Secondly, it is the employer. It is the biggest employer in Kenya, agricultural sector. Third, it is an import substitution sector. The moment we lose on farming, we will need so much dollars. We will stop everything. It will be declared a national disaster. It will be a run out. So used to sing of the president when we took over. Talked about the need to fight. There are three or fights: disease-free country, food security, and about money.
That is the CS for Cooperative Simon Chilugui, Honorable Simon Chilugui, during the launch of Leadership Academy for SMEs. And I do apologize for the technical hitches in that feed, but my colleague is keeping tabs with what is currently happening at that event and will bring us more in our subsequent bulletin. But on this second hour, thank you so much for joining us again. We are talking about matters environmental conservation tomorrow, the 5th of June. And as we do each and every year, we talk about matters environment, where we are celebrating World Environment Day. And in studio, I have 3 environmental champions, let me call them so, as they are working each and every day to ensure that we have a better environment, and more so when we talk about matters climate change. Everybody has felt the pinch when we talk about matters climate change. Allow me to begin from my immediate left. We have Elizabeth Atieno.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me today.
Karibu sana.
Asante.
Elizabeth is a food advocate from Greenpeace Africa. Yes. Just next to him, we have Samuel Odhiambo. Samuel is from Kenya Climate Awareness Defenders.
Yes, thank you for having me.
And next to him, we have Betty Ngeno, who is the coordinator, Mothers Rebellion for Climate Justice Kenya. An interesting name. Karibu sana. And maybe let's begin from there. Mothers Rebellion, that has caught my eye. Tell us what you do as a coordinator at Mothers Rebellion for Climate Justice. Why rebellion?
Okay, thank you for having us this morning.
You're welcome.
Mothers Rebellion is it's a global movement of women in climate space, and it originated from USA, California, and it spread to Sweden, and from there, it's now in all over 26 countries in the world. Mothers Rebellion Kenya, it came to Kenya in last year, September. I founded it. That's when I joined the movement, and we have 2 chapters in Nairobi and Kisumu. Yeah, so what we do is we make cycles, a form of, what you say, a protest. We protest by having cycles. You come to maybe a public space, a public park, you have a cycle of mothers, children, aunties, grandparents, and you hold a poster written on something on climate change. And what we are advocating for is a better future for our children. And we are using that the caregiving nature of mothers. Mothers if they can take care of a small baby, they can also take good care of the environment.
All right. We'll be canvassing that a little bit deeper. Elizabeth, you work at Greenpeace Africa as a food advocate. Tell us some of the mandate that you have at Greenpeace Africa, and what exactly are you doing in matters of environmental conservation?
Thank you so much. So generally, I'm a food advocate. I speak to people, to school children, going to everyone that I found. I just speak to them about food sovereignty and just trying to see how can we be able to produce our food while also taking care of our environment. Because agriculture has been labeled as one of the main major polluters of the environment. So for me, that was key when immediately after university, that is a topic that I came across, and I was like, okay, now I'm a person who is interested in agriculture, interested in matters of food security, but how do we make sure that our small-scale farmers or our farmers in general are producing food in an environmental, in a sustainable way? So that's how I ended up with Greenpeace Africa, which is an NGO that basically stands for protection of the environment. So the aim of Greenpeace Africa is just to protect the environment from degradation and also try to find solutions to make sure that we can be able to work, to live, and also to adapt to the environment while we're also taking care of it. So it's providing for us while we're also taking care of it. So how do we make sure that we stop harming our environment? Because we now see how it's reacting to us. It's now killing people through floods and droughts and all that. And this is because we've been treating it a certain way for so long. So right now it's rebelling, and it's time for us to really go back and decide how do we want our environment to treat us. It has to treat us the way we are treating it. So if we are cutting trees and polluting the environment, then it's going to act in a certain way, and that's why we see recently in Kenya, you see there are issues of floods and all that.
So in short, if we don't adopt smart farming techniques, as farmers, we might end up being also people who are contributing to climate change.
Exactly.
You'll be telling us how we ensure that we are food smart so that we may fight climate change.
Thank you.
Because it's affecting everyone.
Yes, 100%.
Samuel, you work at Climate Awareness Defenders. What exactly do you do?
At Climate Awareness Defenders, our main focus is creating awareness because after practicing other initiatives, mitigation process like tree growing, we found out that not so many Kenyans climate change. So we came together, many like-minded individuals who love and have passion for environment, and we said our main focus should be creating awareness before hitting the ground to do the mitigation and any other.
Now we will be celebrating World Environment Day. And I'm 100% sure, Elizabeth, is that tomorrow, something that will be mentioned is the 15 billion trees that we are planning to plant in the next 10 years. How much of a help in terms of matters climate change is the 15 billion trees?
I think as a country we've done a lot of good work. I can commend our government for that in terms of making sure that we are restoring our environment and also dealing and addressing the issues of desertification. But I think we also need to be keen in terms of we are going to lose the point. So the major question you're supposed to be asking ourselves, are we just planting trees because we want to tick a box and say that on this specific date we planted 5,000 trees or 5 billion trees or 5 million trees? Or are we really doing that so that we can be able to restore our environment? Because we've gotten to a position where we are planting trees, but do we have plans to care for these trees, to make sure that they're going to mature? So for example, we had issues with flooding. In the next few months, you're going to have issues with droughts. So if you're planting trees tomorrow, what's going to happen after the drought? Are we involving communities to make sure that while we are planting these trees, we have people to care for, continue to be there and restore the environment? Another big problem with the issue of planting trees is now corporations are hiding behind planting trees. And they're saying that because we are planting trees, so you're supposed to allow us to pollute the environment. No, we can't do that. Planting trees is not the main issue. The main issue is that you are polluting the environment and you have to stop emitting these toxic greenhouse gases to the environment. That's the only way we can be able to fight the issue of climate crisis. So we need to take a step backward and really think about what we are doing. Are we planting trees so that people can say Kenyans have been planting so many trees? Are we caring for those trees? Some of the trees that we have already planted in the back, do we even know if they are, how can we have a roster and say these are the trees that we planted 5,000 and now we have 4,000 or we have the same 5,000. We don't do that. We just plant trees, we make it ceremonial, we get trees, we plant, and then that's it. People just go their way. And can you imagine how long it takes for a tree to grow? And we are already dealing with the climate crisis. We've already seen people dying. Now we are going to go into another cycle of drought. We were dealing with floods. So are we going to be a country that is going to just be dealing with crisis management and planting trees and not really following up and saying that, are we really working towards sustainable ways of caring for our environment? So I think we really need to shift from thinking about, it's more of like we're putting profit in front of people. So we are thinking of shortcuts. What's the shortcut for us? Let's plant 5,000 trees and that's it. We'll go and say that no, we are not supposed to do that. We need to hold these corporations accountable and make sure that we have to stop polluting the environment and releasing the greenhouse gases that have now impacted us. And also we also need to look at it from who is paying for all these. These people are making profits. Small-scale farmers are losing their crops. People are dying. People have been displaced. Until now, there are people who haven't been displaced. So what are we really doing as a government? What are we really doing as the people to make sure that our communities can be able to deal with the impacts of climate change and not really make it ceremonial and just plant trees for the sake of wanting donor money or wanting some company to come and invest in Kenya? We really need to start putting people before profit.
Betty, let me pick from what Elizabeth has mentioned in terms of figures, the money, because at the end of the day we will find some people also hiding behind that. And it's a good thing she has mentioned this, because Africa, unfortunately, we are the worst hit by climate change in all aspects, in terms of our economies, in terms of even the money that we have, in terms of money that we are using for climate adaptation and mitigation. And talking about adaptation and mitigation, these are two different things that Kenya should also understand in regards to that. And tell us, in as much as you are rebelling, how much are we getting as Africa or even as Kenya? Are we getting enough that we've been able to fight for this, or we still have to continue rebelling so that they might hear us and getting louder?
Yeah, what I can say is that we don't get much. We get a little. And also there is little information and education on matters climate, especially on our school systems. From where I'm coming from, I have children who are going to schools, and I normally ask them, do you have environmental clubs in your school? And they say no. So we need to do this thing from grassroots. If we can get children from school, are we educating them on the matters of environment? They don't even know what's climate change. With them, what is climate change? They say rain, sun, it's not that. And also, if we can get women, rural women from rural areas, As these women mostly, they use firewood for cooking. Where do they get the firewood? From trees. If you fell that tree, are you replacing that tree? They don't have that information. As long as they have cut that tree, it's over. So we have to teach our women, we have to teach our generations, we have to teach our everyone about the impacts of climate change, the adaptation measures and the mitigation measures. And also, we have the women rep positions in the government. What are they doing in the grassroots level? What are they doing to impact women? Are they giving information? And that's what I'm urging the government, the women representatives, because they are representing women. Are they really impacting women on the space, on climate space? Yeah.
And Samuel, you champion awareness in terms of how we live in our environment and how we need to conserve that environment. And I think it's Betty or Elizabeth who has mentioned that even in schools, we really need to get this message out there. How far have you gone in terms of awareness? Well, it's one thing to know how to plant trees, climate adaptation and mitigation. It's another to implement that.
As an organization in terms of school, we've been really reaching out to schools, especially primary schools, where we train kids matters of climate from the better language they can understand, the easiest and the simplest language. And we've been able to reach like 11 schools. We've been trying to have environmental clubs because that's the only way you can train kids to make it as simple as enjoyable so they can understand whatever climate issue is all about. And you can also not go the whole of school to give the general information, but if you come up with some clubs, like we call them environmental clubs, it becomes much easier on regards to trainings and education. And generally in public we do forums, trainings, we do social media campaigns, especially on social media. If you look at my page, I talk about climate awareness as an advocacy. And just to add on what Eliza mentioned about corporates hiding behind the tree growing activity, we always advocate for Adopt a Tree initiative. Many people have heard this word, but it's not actually, I don't know if they understand what it means to adopt a tree. To adopt a tree means any tree planted should be taken care of until that stage where it can now take care of ourselves. But you find out many people just have an event on the weekend, on a Saturday, just for a show. So as Kenya Climate Awareness Defenders, we champion. If we know you are going to have an event, we champion and we advocate you look for a community-based group on the ground, so you can collaborate with them. After you guys coming, maybe doing a donation of tree seedlings or doing the activity, the community left behind or living on that area are now charged with taking care of these trees planted until that day they can take care of us. And that's the only scheme, if used, we can now achieve these 15 million trees being talked about. But if community or government officials or corporates just wake up, this is a Saturday, let's go plant tree, and then they get back to their places, we won't achieve that target. Yeah.
Elizabeth, you talked about most of the farming methods that we have can also affect our environment. What are some of the smart agriculture that we can adopt that can help in environmental conservation? Reason being, when you talk about planting trees, if we plant eucalyptus trees, we are not doing ourselves justice. So what are some of the smart farming methods that we should embrace so that we may try and fight climate change?
Thank you so much. I think for me, one of the things that really frustrates me about this conversation is the first World Environment Day celebration was like 50 years ago, actually 51 years ago. And the message was clear. The message was that we have one Earth. And it was trying to say that we need to take care of our environment. 50 years later, we are still having the same conversation.
And the environment is even worse.
Exactly. It's like we are not acting. We are just talking about climate action, and we are really not acting. And a very good example is Kenya. We have very good plans when it comes to how we are supposed to policies and plans when it comes to how we are supposed to deal with the issues of climate change. Even in the agricultural sector, we have very good plans that are supposed to help farmers deal with the impacts of climate change and also adapt and find better ways of production when it comes to farming. But it's not being implemented. And you find that the government is so obsessed with having, for example, subsidies, very toxic subsidies. And what they're saying is we are giving farmers fertilizers and pesticides and certified seeds. And you go and find that these pesticides are the ones that are making our environment even worse. It's killing our biodiversity, it's polluting our waters, it's killing even our farmers. Most of our farmers now have to deal with the issues of cancer because of the pesticides that they're using. So you find that as a community, as a government, we have very good plans when it comes to what we are supposed to do, but we are not really doing anything. For example, now we have this punitive seed law in place that is saying that small-scale farmers are not supposed to exchange uncertified or indigenous seeds. We know the role of indigenous seeds when it comes to biodiversity. I was raised in a village, and coming from school, I will pass different variety of fruits. It's a mango here, it's an avocado there, and right now you go to the village and there are so many few varieties of even fruits that we have. And if we have a government that is saying small-scale farmers are not supposed to exchange, or rather they are not allowed to sell indigenous seeds, then what are you trying to say? You are trying to say that you want them to use certified seeds, and most of these certified seeds they buy from the agrovet. They cannot help when it comes to conserving our biodiversity. So we are losing it because we keep on advocating for unsustainable ways of farming, but we are very clear of what we are supposed to do. It's not that we don't know, and that's why I was saying that it's more of action. We need to stop hiding from shortcuts, like saying we are going to plant trees, and really go down and say, what are we supposed to do? How can we support our small-scale farmers to make sure that they are producing food sustainably, and also making sure that they can be able to feed the nation? Small-scale farmers produce more than 80% of the food that we eat. I know as we are seated here, almost all of us ate something in the morning that has been produced by a small-scale farmer from somewhere. So how are we supporting them? How are we making sure that when the next extreme weather event hits, they are not going to be affected, they are not going to lose all their plants? We can do that as a government, we can do that as NGOs, we can do that as individuals. We also have a role to play as individuals. You have a role, I have a role. We need to look at how are we also consuming. It's said that in Africa we lose around 5.2 million tons of food per year. And you can imagine it shows starving. Exactly, and we are still starving, and we are still talking about we need to produce more. No, we need to look at sustainable ways of doing things. So it's not, for me, it's not only the government that needs to really go down and try and help in terms of really implementing these policies that we already have in place, but it's also individuals. We also need to be accountable and hold ourselves accountable and make sure that we are helping our small-scale farmers produce quality food. There's also the thing that most people don't even buy organic products in the market. You will say it's expensive, it's this and that. It's fine. We are not even conscious enough to really think about the food that we eat. We go to the market and we buy. We don't care. It's laced with pesticides, toxic pesticides. We are eating apples that are full of pesticides. We are just feeding ourselves poison. But we don't sit for a moment and ask ourselves, that food that I ate yesterday, is it safe? We don't. So I feel like it's also like individual responsibility to really just play a role when it comes to environmental conservation.
I totally concur, because also being raised from the village, we used to love bread, but we were being given domas and guaches, which we didn't like because we wanted the packaged product. And back then, bread was expensive, was more expensive than domas and guaches. Now, the domas and guaches are more expensive than bread. And Betty, going back to the World Environment Day, as Liz has pointed out, this is the 51st we are celebrating. But unfortunately, since the 1st and the 51st, we have done worse. We are far much worse than 50 years ago in terms of climate mitigation and adaptations. And looking at the theme, we're talking about land restoration, desertification, drought resistance. We've had COP 1, 2, 3, 4, now we are in 20-something. But unfortunately, we are only raising and rebelling, raising placards saying this is what we want, this is what we want, but we are doing quite different. How is it now different when we talk about One Environment Day? What are some of the things that, or some of the measures that we are supposed to take from now going forward? Because 50 years ago, you are still doing the same thing we are doing now. Now we're even worse.
Thank you so much. As we mark the World Environmental Day tomorrow, what I can say is that there's nothing to celebrate. What are we celebrating? We are still losing people because of floods. We lost people, I think, in 2022 because of droughts in Kajiado and the arid areas. And what we have done is...
This year, almost 300 because of the flood.
Yeah. I think what we have done is talking. There's nothing in place. And what government is doing is talking. We have good plans in book, but in ground, zero. So I think what we need to do is, what are we doing individually, as Lisa said, what are we doing individually to change that thing? Are we impacting, are you doing something somewhere? And also what government needs to do is take the policies to the ground, not in the offices, because they are writing those things in the offices and they are left there. No one is reading. Who is going to read them? And the most impacted and the most affected are the rural women, children who are in the rural areas. And these effects of climate change, the most affected are women and children, because they are vulnerable, because of maybe their biological spheres and how they have been built. Like the case of Maimayu, there was around 52 people died and 29 alone were children. Are we going to lose more? What kind of generation are we going to have in future if we are going to lose all the children now? And what the government needs to do now is to put measures in ground. Let those people in the government come down to people, not just talking in televisions, organizing for events. We are having tree planting, you plant a tree there, who is going to see it? You just plant it, you put a placard there, you take pictures, and that is it. We don't want that. We want them to come down in place, and also if they can fund the community-based organizations. There are a lot of community-based organizations. If they can fund farmers, if they can give them affordable and organic fertilizers, as Lisa said, we can mitigate this. And also education. Do these people have information? What's happening? As Lisa said, when we were growing up, even where I'm coming from, there was a small stream. A lot of people were getting water from there. But when I go there, it's dried up. Because of what? Because of people lack knowledge, and they were asking themselves, oh, mtoni likauka, why? They don't know why. But if we give them that information, this is happening, we can do this. And that's why Mothers Rebellion are rebelling, because we believe that women, they can save more on water, as in they can do more as the caregivers. And we want that information. We can train more women. We can get them, we can give them something like maybe fruit orchards in their homes. And when droughts come, what will they do? We can have them the smart agriculture, as Lisa said. You can use them to those sacks, gardens in their homes, the small, which they can manage. And instead of pouring water, they can use that water. Maybe they can use that water to irrigate those plants. And also it can boost nutrition, and also we can have healthy children. And this crisis, it's affecting even education. If there is drought, there's no food. Will children go to school? No, they not go to school.
I'm looking at, Odhiambo, I'm looking at over 50 years that we've been messing our country despite observing an environment day specifically for environmental restoration. The mangroves, the marine life is also somewhere that we are forgetting a lot. And also, still on awareness, I'm looking at the money that we've seen different COPs, the developed economies, are pumping into Africa, which is the worst hit in terms of climate change. Is that really enough to do all that? Because we always say, if you dump, you pay.
Yep. I don't think if the money is enough, and even if it's enough...
You should be clamoring for more.
Yeah, we should be asking for more. And our issue, or our thinking as Kenya Climate Awareness Defenders, this money is not being channeled to the right processes, to the right people. This money is not being felt on the ground, because if it could be felt on the ground, we could see a big difference in terms of activities, youth-led initiatives on matters of mitigation and adaptation, or even of creating awareness. But as from our side, what we see is these finances come, the best it can do is having forums, having seminars, making policies which does not hit the ground and which we does not see any difference making. That's why most environmental activists will still see us on the street having placards, because we have not felt the impact of these funds on the ground. And I think these things should be addressed, especially with our government and our ministry and all the people concerned. On the matters of marine life, just like Madam Liz have said, I don't know if it's only in Kenya or in the world, we use something we have until maybe it's no longer there. That's when we realize we are supposed to conserve it. Like even for the example of the river, they used it. Until that time, it was no longer there. That's now what people realize they should conserve it. I'll give an example. I'm an advocate of organic farmer, and I really love organic foods. No matter how I do my own farming on my backyard. So we create awareness in our organization to promote such kind of activities, because the more you use fertilizers and chemicals on your farms, that land will not, in the next 20 or 30 years, it will be now a dried land, what we are talking about for the Environmental Day. But it's something if the government can take an initiative of teaching farmers to embrace organic farming. The organic farming we can use, she talked about the waste products, the food waste, over 1 billion in Africa. Kenya, if you've ever gone to a dumping site, majority of the waste there are food waste, especially from our homes. This food waste can be used to make manure, which are organic and which can be used to make small micro gardens and micro farms with using the sacks and the container. So you see up there will be a little, or even there will be a way. We avoided destroying our land using chemicals and using a smart way of farming. Those are the teachings we should teach our people. We should not teach our people to continue using more fertilizers, which are so much expensive and destroying our land. Yes,
I think that's one of the ways that we can address this. Madam Liz, I'm looking at the bamboo is becoming something that is being preferred in a number of nations. Asia has done a pretty good job, and especially China, in regards to use of bamboo to assist wetland conservation. And I've noted Nandi County is one of the counties who are embracing bamboo for the restoration of wetlands. How much of this should we cascade to other counties, and how much, as an expert, does it help to conserve even the wetlands? Because if we don't do that, we are doomed.
Yeah, I think for me, it's just frustrating. I keep saying this because it is frustrating. Because we have seen these things work. We've seen how bamboos have been working in restoring other wetlands in other countries. Now we have examples in Kenya where we see counties that are doing it. For example, Nandi County, which for the longest time people have been looking at it as a dry area in somewhere where nothing good comes from, literally. But now we see it like working. For example, now, even right now, when you talk about agriculture and food, you see Machakos County doing so well when it comes to food production. And we have these examples in country, not even outside the country. But we are not doing anything about it. We are not replicating this in other counties. We still have counties that have to deal with issues of insecurity every single year. Every single year, there are people who go to bed without food. There are people who die. There are kids who die because they don't have food to eat. Because we don't want to get into implementation. We are more focused on just making a lot of noise and saying that we are doing this on paper, but not really implementing it. Our president is the head of the, what is it called? The Committee of African Leaders and States on climate change. Exactly. Yes. And as a country, what are we making noise about right now? Planting trees. It means that's the same example that other countries are going to follow, because our president is known as a climate fighter, a climate champion. So what are we doing that other countries can be able to really pick up on? If it's something about bamboo and how it's helping our wetlands, why can't we work hard on replicating that? If it's, for example, how we can be able to take care of our forests. For example, the Mau forest is one of the most, one of the indigenous forests that we have in Kenya that really plays a very important role in just taking care of the environment. Why don't we show through really doing the actions that are looking at the core issues when it comes to the climate crisis? And that's where the frustration comes from, because we have these examples. We know. We have governors who know. We have leaders who know, even from the county level. But we are not really taking action. It's more of making a lot of noise and making it ceremonial. Tomorrow there are so many people who will be taking pictures with trees. I'm planting this tree and all that. But after that, just go and ask the county governments. Just ask them, how much trees did we plant? Can we have like a roster of exactly saying which trees we planted, where they are, who is going to take care of them? We have communities. Why can't we do this in partnership with communities? Why can't we bring in communities and say, like, we are going to have this restricted area, we are going to make it like a community program, and we're going to take care of these trees? Why can't we do that? Why do we just want to make it more of a photo session? And then after that, we go home and say we are doing something. We are not. There are so many examples, and the bamboo is one of the examples that we can be able to replicate as a country. But we are not. So it's very frustrating, and I just hope that now that we have started to feel the real effects of the climate crisis, we can now go into really acting and stop just making a lot of noise about the issue of climate.
Betty, let me pick from where Elizabeth has left it. And I'm looking at Kenya. We have decided 15 billion trees in the next 10 years. What if our neighbors, Uganda, Tanzania, Somalia, do not actively participate in environmental conservation? That will be counterproductive for the country as well. How do we ensure that each and everyone is doing what they should? Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, all the East African countries, because we are a region here. And Kenya, Somalia, we are in the sub-Saharan Africa, where more or less we are not quite far from the desert.
Okay, thank you for that. I think what we need to do as a government, we should also work with our neighbors. You take care of your neighbor so that he can take care of you. Because if you plant fruits in your side, there's no fruit from the neighbor side, so they'll come and steal from your side. So as much as we are doing as a country, we need also to involve our neighbors from Uganda, from Tanzania, and at the region as well. And by doing that, we'll ensure that the whole region is really doing something on climate crisis. And because this thing is really affecting us. We have heard of the heat crisis in South Sudan. Children are dying because of heat. Heat.
And even in West Africa a couple of months back.
Yeah, people were dying because of heat. And what's causing that? It's because of climate. We have destroyed the ozone. The ozone is destroyed because of the emission of the gases. And we need to come up with something like policy for the region. If you plant trees here, also the other side should do that, because there is not. Because if Kenya alone do that, if the crisis is the other side, they'll come here, all of them, and will not be able to sustain all the people here. Yeah. And
still on that, because you are awareness defender, we have an East African anthem. I think if we cascaded a reforestation anthem in the region, will be moving somewhere. Have you explored creating awareness in the region? Because at the end of the day, if we conserve the environment in Kenya, but our neighbors don't do that, that will be counterproductive.
Yeah, we've tried to reach out. There's an affiliate group called African Youth Congress. It was founded by environmentalists like me. So we've tried to champion for environmental activities, especially in Uganda. We have a forum in this September to continue with advocacy and awareness creation in that area. But I think this issue can be addressed more openly with our government, especially now when our president is sitting at the top of African leadership on matters of climate. I think it's something they can voice out and bring a bigger impact, though as a people or as a community or as a youth groups, we are trying to champion on our own small skills. Yeah.
How can we champion so that the environment conversation, so that we may also benefit from carbon credits? Because at the end of the day, we need to do everything. We have to mitigate and adapt to climate change.
Yeah. I think it starts with really going and looking at the core issue when it comes to the issue of climate crisis. What is it that is causing this climate crisis? And we've been talking about planting billions of trees. But does it make sense when we are planting billions of trees and then we are lifting a ban on logging? So when we had the ban, we had our forest cover grew from I think 5% to 8% in 3 years. Can you imagine that small increase? And then when we lift the ban, can you imagine the impact that that is going to have? It means we are going to go back to where we were, even maybe less to where we were. So I think we really need to stop making it more of a ceremonial thing and just making noise and really aligning our national goals to really make sure that we are able in terms of fighting this, because we cannot say on one hand I'm going to plant trees and then on the other hand I'm going to lift ban on logging because I want the youth to get jobs. No, that is not a sustainable jobs. What happens when we have cut all the trees? Do they go back to like do what exactly? There are so many other sustainable ways that we can be able to get the youths to use our forest and make money on even get jobs. So I think basically for me is we know what we're supposed to do already. We have strategies, we have our president is even representing us in Africa when it comes to Kenya being one of the champions when it comes to really making this work. So I think it's very important for us to really go back down and look at our policies and really make sure that we have very good policies. Kenya actually is one of the countries that leads when it comes to that.
Like we always say in politics, the only issue comes when we come to implementation.
Exactly. So let's just try and implement. And once we start implementing, we will all see the fruits, because we are seeing the fruits happening in different counties where even county leaders and governors are doing it and making it work. So why can't we just do that as a country and make sure that we can be an example to other even neighbors, to our neighbors? Because we cannot be planting, what we've said, we cannot be planting trees and Tanzania is not doing it or Uganda is not doing it. We have to do this as a whole. We have messed with our environment as a group, so we need to also work on that. When it comes to carbon credits, for me, I don't think we need to use that as a primary excuse for not like doing anything and saying that this is what we are doing. It's like it's like you have a wound, a very big wound, and then you take a bandage and cover it.
Yes.
It's not going to work. You have to care for it. So we really need to go back and look at the core issues, core reasons why we're having the issues of climate crisis. And it's because we keep on emitting greenhouse gases in the environment. So as we are talking about planting trees and carbon offsetting projects, can we also look at the core issue, which is we are allowing these corporations to continue pollute our environment as they hide behind saying that we are planting trees. Yes, it's fine. I advocate for planting trees. I tell everyone every single day, if you find a chance to plant tree, please plant it, because it can go a long way to save to do something for our environment. But at the end of the day, we really need to go and look at the core reason why we are doing, where we have this issue. And we cannot say that. A very good example that a colleague gave me last week was you smoke, and you go to a doctor and the doctor tells you that you need to stop smoking because it's affecting your lungs. And then you go home and you think about it and you say, okay, I'll start eating salad. So is salad going to offset the impacts of the smoking? No, so you have to also look at how is this affecting me. I cannot continue smoking a pack of cigarette every single day and expect the salad to offset the effects of. So I think it's fine that we are looking at different ways that we can be able to deal with the climate crisis, but let's be realistic.
All right. Betty, as we wrap up, what is your clarion call as we celebrate World Environment Day? And looking back 50 years, we've already messed. We need to clean up.
What I can say is that let me call on our leaders. Corruption is something that's really messing us up. We see what happened in those wetlands areas, in the riparian lands. People were sold the lands. People built houses there. Who sold the lands? The lands were already casted by the government. So it's something that happens from the government itself. So let our leaders be accountable. Let them be accountable for what they're doing to our environment. And also, let's also have gender statistics on the effects of climate. Who is the most affected? Who are we going to help? Is it women? Is it children? Is it the people with disabilities? And also regions. Who are the most affected? Which region is the most affected? And if we get that statistics well, we can be able to put the mitigation measures, but also we can be able to put the education on place. And through that, we can have, and also funding for the CBOs, for the women-led groups, for the agricultural groups that are on the ground. If we can do that, we can see change from the ground, not from the offices, We can make policies, but they cannot be in place because why? We have not implemented them. It cannot work from the office. It can only work from the ground, from the people from the ground. So what I can say is that as we mark the World Environmental Day tomorrow, let's all stand up for our environment. We are all responsible for our environment.
Thank you. Samuel, as we wrap up?
Yes, as we wrap up, I want to call on the responsible government, our government. On ground, I'm always on ground, and I work with youths. Youths are very willing, and they're already participating on their own on matters of climate and initiatives. So I don't see why it's so difficult for our government, especially the Ministry of Environment, why they cannot come down and channel resources to these youth-led initiatives on the ground. They have the data, they know them by names, by actions. They're all over social media. You see what youth groups are doing. I don't know why it's so difficult. We have the policies, we have the finances. We also know the minister has finances to do its activities. I don't know why it's so difficult for them to come down and combine or join forces with the youth-led organizations so that we can have at least a bigger step, something that can be seen after 1 year. This is what we have been able to do. If it's planting the trees, this is what we've been able to plant the trees, which can be accounted for. Many youths, I'll talk now as a youth leader, many youths in the past regime, there were so many youths in the Kazim Tani, you remember? Yeah. Most of these youths have come back and now doing climate activities with no government support. I think it's a wake-up call for our government to come on board if they really want to achieve this target of 15 billion trees, to embrace youth-led organizations and groups in the ground to practice and continue with the climate effect mitigation and all the involved processes.
All right, thank you. Samuel Odhiambo from the Kenya Climate Awareness Defenders. Just next to me, we have Elizabeth Atieno from the Greenpeace Africa there as a food advocate. And far left, we have Betty Ngeno, the coordinator, Mothers Rebellion for Climate Justice Kenya. There's a conversation that we really need to expound further, and especially how climate change affects women, youth, women, children, and persons with disabilities. Again, when it comes to matters climate, we have climate adaptations and mitigation. Think of it as a boat. You're in a boat that has a hole that is leaking. You have to flush that water out, or do you fix the boat? You can do both. Either way, we really need to change our ways so that we may have a softer war, climate change war. Thank you so much indeed for watching. My name is Bentroy Njue. Anne Wangeshi has been our sign language interpreter for these 2 hours. Thank you so much for joining us since we began at 10 a.m. We do this again some other time. On behalf of everyone who has made this broadcast a success, including my director, Jackie Wasolo, I thank you so much for watching. I'm now giving the baton to the Swahili desk for Kurunzi Mashinani and Tamrini. Have a blessed one.
Robots conducting orchestras, opera being performed in virtual reality, and generative AI helping create an entire ballet. How high-tech innovation can revolutionize the stage, our topic today on Shift. Will robots really start replacing us in the arts world? With the rise of AI and cutting-edge robotics, the debate is definitely heating up. The robot Alter 3 made a name for itself in 2020 when it conducted an orchestra in the UAE, but the reviews were decidedly mixed. 3 years later, South Korea is giving the computerized conductor another chance to lead an orchestra. Let's take a look.
This is no ordinary concert. Today, the Korean Chamber Orchestra will be led by 2 conductors, Soil Chu and Eve R6, a humanoid robot. The duo takes turns and conduct together. But are they bridging the gap between man and machine?
지휘 동작이 사실 굉장히 디테일해요.
Movements by a conductor are very detailed.
로봇이 구현해낼 수
The robot
있다는
was able to
게
present
제
such detail
예상보다
much
훨씬
better than I had
디테일한
imagined.
부분까지 하더라고요.
Eve R6 learned to mimic conductors' movements with motion capture technology. But while he can set tempi and rhythms accurately, the human touch is missing. He cannot hear, react, or make eye contact. But by focusing on their strengths, the robot and human world fall into harmony. Eve R6 focuses on structures and tempo. Conductor II focuses on improvisation.
뭔가 어떤 그 대치하고 이런 그런 부분보다는
I think it was a
공존하면서
recital
서로
that showed that robots and humans can coexist and complement each other,
보여줄 수 있는
rather than
단적인
one
어떤
replacing
그런
the other.
뭐랄까 그 공연이 아니었나.